May 2013, 8 years since Al-Qaeda-inspired terrorists had last murdered on British soil. On a London street, Michael Adebolajo and Michael Adebowale did this. They ran over Fusilier Lee Rigby, armed with knives and a meat cleaver. Adebolajo tried to behead him. Adebowale hacked at his body. With the blood of his victim on his hands, Adebolajo tried to justify the atrocity.
We must fight them as they fight us, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Neither man ran, nor did they attack onlookers. Instead, they waited for armed police. They charged at them, later claiming they wanted to be shot dead, believing that would make them martyrs. They were shot, with the officers they tried to kill then treating them.
I think this particular attack is unique in many ways because they weren't hiding. They were happy to be found.
By Allah, we swear by the Almighty Allah, we will never stop fighting you until you leave us alone.
Before I saw anything on the news, I was phoned by my father, who was quite hysterical, and who told me to, turn on the news and get in contact with my mum. So, that's how I found out.
It seemed to me that he actually didn't realize the severity of the situation. It seemed as if this was some kind of a YouTube film he had made.
Lee was a man who loved people. He had many friends growing up in Middleton. He believed life was for living, and he will be sorely missed by all who knew him.
Forensic psychiatrist Randi Rosenquist assessed Norwegian killer Anders Breivik, who also claims he murdered for a cause. She examined footage and documents about Adebolajo to offer insight into why he might have carried out the atrocity.
I would think that Adebolajo had very little sense of being great. They have to demonstrate for the world that they are important people.
So what if we want to live by the Sharia in Muslim lands? Why does that mean you must follow us and chase us and call us extremists and kill us?
A lot of what was said had been said before by not only the 9/11 attackers, but also the 7/7 attackers and others. So I think none of the words we heard were new.
Kamaldeep Bui is Professor of Cultural Psychiatry at Queen Mary University and an expert in terrorism and radicalisation.
Even in the video footage that was caught, he was talking about my people and my brothers. And at one stage he says, our soldiers. And there's a bit of a confusion there in his mind in that moment about who he is and what his identity is. Certainly the cause he seems to be espousing doesn't reflect his own upbringing and experience. Educated in Britain, family of Christian background, Nigerian-born family, although he was born in the UK. And it just doesn't seem to make sense, and I think that's what frightens people.
Aged 18, Adebolajo, who was born to a devout Christian family, converted to Islam.
Young people growing up confused about what background they actually have, what citizenship, where they belong. They are much more vulnerable to radicalization.
We know from the evidence of terrorists that actually many of them have been converts, but we know conversions are common and they reflect, if you like, a fragile identity, a vulnerable identity.
When he converted, his outlook on life changed, his treatment towards others. He perceived people as human beings, and I think that's key to how a man who has so much connection to Britain and seemingly has no connection to Iraq and Afghanistan can come to view the blood of those Iraqis and Afghanistan as his own sisters, his own sons, his own brothers. He was a man who did not take his nationality as something which gave him or any other human value.
Some people convert more to be part of a smaller subgroup, more to demonstrate towards others that they're not any longer one of them, more to be unique and do something radical. I think that Adeboulajo was seeking something which he didn't find. He turned from Christendom to Islam, and he tried to develop that during a 10-year period, but he obviously was not satisfied and had to do something more dramatic.
Between us, we decided that the soldier is the most fair target because he joins the army with kind of an understanding that your life is at risk when you join the army.
Both Breivik and Adeboulajo identified themselves as soldiers in a war going on in Europe and the Muslim countries, and they both feel entitled to kill people.
Lee Rigby is a man who decided to join the armed forces of Britain to protect what he holds dear. And my brother was a man who decided to also join military resistance in what he holds dear. My view is that Lee Rigby is akin to my brother in that they were both soldiers for their individual, though differing, causes.
I think that both of these terrorists have to give themselves an identity as soldier to make their criminal actions right.
In November 2010, Adeboulajo was arrested in Kenya, accused of trying to get to extremist-controlled areas of Somalia. From the dock, Adeboulajo alleged he had been mistreated.
These people, they are mistreating us and we are innocent, believe me.
There's been some press also about the possibility of him having been treated badly and possibly abused and tortured when he was in Kenya. Now we know when individuals are experiencing trauma that they can respond to it with a very potent and, again in pathological terms, a narcissistic response where they take charge.
At the scene of the attack, expecting to die, Adeboulajo gave a suicide note to a witness.
Adeboulajo in his letter seems to refer to his children. I think the messaging is, if he has children, for them, but also more widely applicable. Maybe he knew this letter would be more widely available, but he seems to be urging his children, more broadly, to become involved in the fight, to be prepared, even to beware of those closest to them and to walk away from them. Now that's very interesting because that's very common in terrorism and in radicalisation, where individuals have to leave good influences, benevolent influences, in order to become part of a new in-group with a more potent sense of identity.
I would think that Adeboulajo has some of the same ideas, but not as grandeur as Breivik. I don't have information that might say that he considered himself a savior of the world, but more a demonstrator.
Are you proud of your brother?
In that he is a Muslim and that he sought to please Allah by fighting in his cause and dying in his cause, then to this extent, yes.
Do you love your brother more or less than you did, say, 1 year ago?
I love him more. Yeah.
You fought for your country and did it well. You will always be our hero.
Adeboulajo and Adebowale told the jury they were soldiers of God. The jury decided they were murderers. Now they will serve life sentences. For Lee Rigby's family, their life sentence will be the loss of their loved one.
I believe we have to get used to the idea that there are terrorists also in Europe. And the peacefulness we've had in Europe after the Second World War is not to last forever. But we have to remember that there are luckily quite few people who are willing to become terrorists.